hey, everybody. Thanks for joining us again for our next edition of the Marketing Spotlight. I have with me here today Joe Cox, a pop marketer. Joe is a frequent speaker at digital summits, and he will be with us at this month's At Home conference coming up here October 20th and 22nd. So we're looking forward to that. Joe lives at the crossroads of brand marketing and popular culture, where he teaches brands the power of pop marketing, making ideas and content more potent in a new golden age of creativity. Joe's branding foundation comes from his days at Red Bull and Coca-Cola, so that's a lot of caffeine. Just saying.
It is.
So we're hopefully we're going to get some of that excitement coming through.
Right.
He's also been on the agency side and working on some pretty cool brands, Anheuser-Busch, Wingstop. I know a lot about those two, and we're going to talk a little bit about which I think is one of your great case studies that really explains what part marketing is, and that's the Wingstop and the 420.
Oh, yeah.
That one's
It's a
really
good one.
So welcome, Joe.
It took some work to get to that one. Hey, I am so excited, and thank you so much for having me on here to talk to the Digital Summit community. So it's great to virtually be here today and live streaming. I get to show off my new sign. So enjoy the neon glow of the pop marketer sign.
The studio looks great. Again, Joe's going to be joining us at the October At Home virtual summit coming up here October 20th and 22nd, which you still have time to get tickets for that. Joe, what is pop marketing, and how did you get started with that? Tell us a little bit about the background in what is pop marketing.
Yeah, well, I'll start with how it came up, because it's taken the entire career really to get to that idea. I was the guy, I grew up in the country. I was, parents worked, and I spent a lot of time with popular culture, right? But I wasn't in a hub. I was in a small town, and, it was, my inputs to culture and to everything going on was through the television and through, the weekly Kansas City magazine, and with video games. And at that time, aging me, it's like AOL, right? Like, and community groups, and seeing kind of how connected fandom kind of started working. I was also the guy that I noticed when I went to concerts, I was always more interested with it, not with the show going on in front of me, but I would always be turned around the wrong way, right? So I was always fascinated with the crowd and the stories and why people were there, and just the fandom of the people there. So then, as my career went, like you had said before, I spent probably the first, 15 years inside on the brand side, working with Red Bull and Vitamin Water. And I don't think I realized it until I started going over to the agency side. But during that entire career, I didn't make any ads. I had done a lot of marketing, and we'd done a lot of events and influencers, and, run the gamut of a lot of different things, but none of them would have really been traditionally been seen as, as advertising. And then as my career progressed inside agency, I was able to work with a lot more brands, and I was always the person that would want to do the thing that wasn't the 30-second spot or wasn't the ad, but the thing that would, include people, the thing that would get people talking, and the thing that would, market the product in an untraditional way. And then finally, I got some time to really think that idea through, and really what it was borrowing or straight stealing a lot of ideas and thoughts that were coming from popular culture, and then bringing those in and utilizing them for the brands that I was working at. So by putting those things together for a long time, and now, interviewing people and talking to people and studying that, we've put together the idea of pop marketing.
Got it. So did you feel like it was something you just stumbled into, or was it a passion and you wanted to chase this and said, you know what, there are a lot of brands, a lot of companies out there that could use this expertise that frankly, maybe we're really bad at it. And you're like, I want to fix this. Or was it just a matter of, hey, this is a passion, something I want to do? Like, what led you down that path after that?
It was always something that was my interest point, man. I think where we are in media right now, in marketing right now, is two really interesting paths. And I think that one path we've been exploring for a long time, and that path is the path of efficiency. And we get less time with people on our feed when we're buying, when we're doing paid media. And getting to the right target at the right time at the right place is magic, and it's amazing, and I love it. But that was not my passion. That wasn't my headspace. Where I saw the opening was this other place where it was to say, okay, so we're getting a little bit more pushed out. People don't want, the bond between media and content, and getting that interruption period time, it gets shorter and shorter. Really, we have this opportunity as marketers to say, okay, we can run our ads efficiently over here, but we have this other opportunity to actually make things that people want to spend time with, right? Make things and join up with different kinds of ideas and different IPs. And it's not to make your brand human, it's to make sure people understand that there's people behind that brand, right? So I guess you could say it was definitely something that I've always been made for. But something now I'm glad to be able to something we've all known was there, to start wrapping it up and putting it under the idea of pop marketing.
Yeah, and I love that, because one of the things that with branding background that I have, one of the things I've always said about brands is when we talk about branding, we often give brands human characteristics. We might say that brand is warm, or maybe that brand's funny, right? Or that brand can be edgy. All things we can apply to human characteristics. So how do you then take that with clients you work with and match that up to finding, say, what is the ideal pop culture, the ideal partner that you might want to bring those together?
Yeah, partnerships, it's a great point. Partnerships are a big part, right? Like what you're doing is putting two things together to create that new novel idea, right? So partnerships a lot of times is a quick way for us to put our brand with another, with something out there in popular culture, whether that be something in entertainment, music, fashion, whatever it may be. But it always to give our idea and our brand to introduce it to a new group. And as I spoke to that, I lost your original question, but I think I got it back. It was on humans, right? Like, human brand traits. Yes. So it always comes. So human brand traits, that every brand has those things, and you got it right there, is that what is our product all about? The other one is, who is our target, right? Who are we trying to get in front of? What are they watching? What are they investing in? What are they fans of? What are those things? And when you find the sweetest spot, it's that spot to say, it's not a sponsorship, right? We're not sponsoring an event just to get our logos up, but we're making a new idea. You said it, it's that partnership, right? And I think those are very different things, right? The partnership, to me, is putting two things together to make something that nobody else could do, without those two pieces being there. And I think you're right on. You definitely have to find those partnerships that match with your brand and who you're trying to go after.
Yeah, and one of the examples that you and I were just talking about a little bit ago is that McDonald's with Travis Scott, right? Not my generation, not even exactly even sure who the gentleman is, but
sure,
it worked because McDonald's talking about running out of food for the Travis Scott meal. So that's probably an idea of a partnership that a lot of people might be familiar with, of what you're talking about with this whole idea of pop marketing.
Yeah, it stands out because I'll tell you, in the past, McDonald's is a market leader, right? Like they are the market leader, and market leaders, in the past, they haven't had to do even though they've made they've made culture, they've made pop culture, the Happy Meal, everything about Ronald McDonald, everything that they've done, they've created, popular culture, which is huge. And they're on every street corner. But seeing them make this move with Travis Scott, it is big for them. See, they're not really as big as the Burger Kings or the Wendy's, that are more competitor brands on doing things that are super relevant in culture. So my eye's definitely on that. And they didn't do it. They did it in a pretty authentic manner, meaning that the guy already likes, this is his meal. He's a big fan already. And that's one of my rules, is that whenever you're dealing with a celebrity or you're dealing with somebody that you want to come on, make sure that they're a fan already of the thing, right? Like, make sure they're invested and they really want to like bring that to people. Or you're going to be caught, and this is probably you and our day, but it was like Britney Spears and Pepsi back in the day. You know, everybody knew, and they paid her millions of dollars, but everybody was like, she's not drinking Pepsi. You know, like that. There, it was about the money, and consumers are smart. So I think the Travis Scott one was partly worked because he's a fan.
Yeah.
And the partnership went both ways. His site had like $100 stuffed chicken nugget and all this content and good swag and everything that you could like pick up from that. And it was done in a way that, you know, impacted sales.
Yeah, but I think too, those lines of confusion often get blurred. Whereas on the one side, you have what is your spokesperson, right? Like Peyton Manning doesn't really have anything to do with insurance, but he's a great spokesperson for Nationwide.
You got
but
it.
He's also picking up many other brands. So to distinguish Peyton Manning as the voice of whatever, as opposed to the many ways we're looking at influencer marketing, tying this back to digital, and the ways that we can extend that word of mouth type of campaigns through social and through influencer marketing, right? I mean,
right. Right. And I always will start with somebody that is, you know, for most brands, it's really starting with, hey, let's dig in and see who's already utilizing this product. See what might actually be out there if we you know, look at our social feeds, if we search out and see who's already a user of this, and see if we can kind of organically find somebody. Because most times, if you find a fan already, not only are you going to get them for a steal, way more than by talking directly with their people, but whatever they do is just going to come out way more authentic.
Yeah, and it doesn't always have to be, we're not always talking about influencers or we're working with a big celebrity, right?
Totally.
So the example of like, you gave a great example at one of the digital summits of a campaign that you helped, which was Wingstop and 420. And if a lot of people might not be familiar with 420, but a lot of people probably are, but you want to give us a little background on that one and how that came to play with Wingstop and the success you had with that.
Well, I show it for a couple of reasons. It gets attention because it's about, you know, a activation we did on April 20th, which is, you know, kind of like Star Wars Day or other kind of popular culture days that have come up. It's a popular culture day for the use of you know, marijuana. So which is legal in many places these days. So, but at the time, the question is, how do you sell through an idea about that to a business, a CEO, right? Like that is something that most of the time you push away from. So the question is, how did we overcome that and put that idea out there? It's kind of that try thing that we always try to get. The first thing is this: we looked at conversation that was going out. So we looked at it and we saw that 20,000 people in that last, I think, 3 months had mentioned both the idea of weed and Wingstop, right? So this wasn't us putting that idea in anybody's mouth. This wasn't us. This was the consumers having that very much having that idea already, right? And again, we're speaking from the customer and we're really trying to understand that customer because we are not that customer, right? And that was an idea a lot of times to push the CEO through. It's like, that is not you. Let's see through their eyes. The second one was, it was the year before 420 was their number 6 biggest sales day. And there was no other thing going on, and it had gone back for a couple of years. So it was pretty easy to start saying, okay, well, your customers want it. It's already a large sales day. And it is culturally relevant to where we could, if we come out with it now, then we get attention to that, and attention that we wouldn't have to pay for. So in that, we took over the website for the entire day. We actually did that for 4 years in a row, progressively taking that Wingstop 420 campaign and turning it into kind of a holiday that was, seen as a Wingstop holiday. But we took over the website, made it really trippy, and people got a deal on getting their wings delivered that day.
It's a great example, and wanted to build on a word that you said in there, which was culturally relevant, and that's what we're talking about here with the idea of using pop culture, which a lot of people might get confused and think, yeah, younger, et cetera. But pop culture can be across generations. And a question you said that you get often is, okay, so how do I do this with not a lot of money, right? Because I might be with a brand that doesn't have a huge budget for this. So how can some of those brands, those companies out there on a shoestring budget get involved in pop marketing?
I get it all the time, and I understand, because a lot of times we're talking about the things we can learn from Marvel, millions, hundreds of millions of dollars, but amazing lessons that anyone can like draw out of that. But I always get the question is like, what about me? I don't have the budget to get a celebrity, even if they're a big fan. I don't have, where do I start? So, I have made an entire session coming up for the October virtual event that is dedicated completely to answer this question, to say, yes, you do not have to have millions of dollars. It can be awesome to have that for partnerships and different things that you may want, but anyone can use the tenets and the ideas within popular culture and utilize them. A couple of them is, to me, and you kind of mentioned it, popular culture is a universal language. So a lot of it might not even be that the ideas are going to be, hey, I need a celeb, hey, I need to put this crazy thing on social media. A lot of it is just utilizing popular culture and what's going on in popular culture. And if you are the person in the room that has those ideas and understands what is happening right there, it makes it a lot easier to ideate on new ideas and stuff that you might be doing, and putting those kinds of thoughts with even talking about Travis Scott and all that stuff. The things and the insight you can unlock from that can really help you be that person in the room that knows what's up, knows what people will like, and can utilize popular culture as just a way in order to sell, inspire, or communicate your ideas. So that's no money, but just being able to keep up with it and understand where people are liking and how things are moving inside of popular culture can really help you sell through those ideas. And when I say universal language, I've been all around the world, and Friends is maybe even more popular in Saudi Arabia than it is here. And if you have a joke about Rachel, it'll go off, and no matter what language it is. So I think it's tough for us Westerners inside the U.S. that we've created a lot of these stories and narratives of popular culture to understand how powerful and universal that language is.
Yeah, I'm old enough to remember when Jerry Lewis was, I think, popular in, I believe it was Germany or France. That he was in the US.
Huge.
Yeah. Which brings me to another question. If you're looking to do some of this and a brand wants to take advantage of what is trendy, what are going, and that's really what pop culture is, right? Things that are trendy and that are popular. Let's take an example. You mentioned like Marvel, or one that I know a lot of people are excited about, The Mandalorian coming up this month.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? You got to be careful though, right? As a company of violating any trademarks or anything there too. So how do you negotiate that? What advice do you give people in those regards?
I get that question too. And a lot of it matters. I mean, it's going to come, and I've dealt with it with brands from like a Wingstop or an Anheuser-Busch, all the way to places that are in pharmaceuticals that are way more conservative, right? Or that are in finance and way more conservative. There are always ways you can do it. There's always ways to think about it in a smart way. I think that a great example for that is like an Arby's, right? Like if you look at Arby's social feed, and I'm not quite sure if this is still their strategy, but they built a strategy on on really deep gaming culture, gaming memes, different characters from all these different IPs. Now, if they would have used normally and just put up pictures of those things, they would have been sued out of existence, right? Or at least they'd have been in trouble. And that's granted. There is ownership of that IP. However, what they did was they just had an artist mold those characters from Arby's bags and boxes and French fries and all the stuff that is Arby's. So just the Arby's world, and then put it on a table inside of a restaurant as a setting. And it did not take long for gamers and everybody to really connect with that. And look at that, they're connecting the product, like straight out the product and formed into these shapes. And their legal team had decided that that was enough of a difference to keep them out of trouble. Different legal teams are different. And if you're really conservative, and I get it, it's a struggle a lot of times to go back and forth. Some really smart things I've seen, like my friend brought up the other day. What was it? It was using internal. So it was he was on a call with Demand Base, and Demand Base is just a piece of software that software as a service that's about targeting and the media stuff and marketing stuff that we're into. But on their demo call, they used the characters from The Office and built a little story out of characters from The Office using that software, and had their names and faces in there. Now, that's a really smart way to utilize popular culture to connect with the person on the other side of that line that may not be as risky as putting a paid ad out there.
Yeah, unless you're using that example to tell someone or suggest that someone's like one of the characters on the show and they don't see that. And it was my son filled out one of those forms and came back and said he was like Dwight. He's like, I'm not like Dwight. He wasn't
right. Well, yeah, you have to be on, and I would say have one that's pop culture and have one that's not, and decide really quick inside that call, is this somebody that you think has any idea what The Office is or not? Because even though they're universal, they also can kind of land with a thud if that person is not connected to that piece of popular culture.
Yeah, but your example of The Office is something I was thinking about and when I was looking at some of the other examples that you had, we're showing Stranger Things and some and whatnot, Friends. It seems like this is so mainstream that we really miss it. It's happening a lot more than we know it is. And then until you start paying attention to it, you're like, wow, it's kind of ingrained in many different brands' strategies to do stuff. So with that, who do you think is really killing it right now? Like, what's one example out there where you're like, that's a really, really good one?
No, there's really a lot of good ones. I would even take it from, there's the greats, right? Like you have the Wendy's that has really taken on from meme culture, and they just had a incredible case study that they had where for no money, it was a Fortnite campaign where they went around Fortnite and were just people that are working for the brand inside the game, dressed up as Wendy, or as making the character as Wendy as possible, and then breaking refrigerators inside the game. That's all they did. They didn't fight anybody. They just would go to house, like killing refrigerators, because they were against frozen meat, right? Like fresh, never frozen. But those are the big ones. What people tend to forget, and the ones that I love, is seeing people like, I think Pantone is one that I love, right? If you're going to kind of have a deep cut, Pantone, the color people, right? They're in charge of all color. I love how every year they have that color of the year, and they put that color to popular culture, right? And whenever they do that, it creates popular culture, because they are the end all be all of color. And whenever they have that time, they own it every year. Also, I'm a nerd, so I'm always looking for Stranger Things. To me is a huge one, and that'll be coming back up hopefully sooner than later. We need some movies and entertainment. But Stranger Things amazing because they wove different products and brands inside of the story. And then the third season you could get like it, they took it to the max. But just that idea of Eggo waffles, I think they had their only up year, their first up year in like 12 years, the year after Stranger Things went out, and they paid no money. That was written into the script, right? But that was a partnership that they had gotten. So again, there's always this idea of like, can you find, you brought it up perfectly. Our job is we're taking things that aren't quite, they're cool. They're still on this side of popular culture, and we are trying to pull those things up, and we're kind of leading them to mainstream. And whenever they get to mainstream, they're not quite as cool. But that's really what I see our job is to do, is to pull something that's pretty cool and people haven't seen before and put that into the spotlight. And at some point that will not be cool anymore. The beauty of pop culture is it always moving.
Yeah. So my segues perfectly in my next question is, given everything we've talked about in looking at pop marketing and influencer marketing in general, where do you see it going in the next 2 to 3 years?
It's nuts. It's, really where I think people should be looking, and where I'm putting a lot of time in researching, is fandom, right? Like, if my idea for pop marketing is, hey, let's take the lessons from popular culture that are going on and try to utilize them to capture and hold attention for marketers, so we can make better, more relevant, awesome content for our audiences, then what's really going on is when we look at Patreons, when we look at influencer, different places that people are, this back and forth talk between the IP or the Star Wars and their fans, and how things get made between them now. It's very fascinating. And I think that any brand that wants to understand how to build a community around them could learn a million lessons and insights from following these places, like, game culture and different places that have had community way longer than we've been talking about community. And you can kind of future tell a bit if you start really studying up how people are interacting, the celebrity or the brand or whatever, or the game or whatever it is, with the community, and the dialogues back and forth, and how products are kind of getting made amazingly as a dialogue between the two.
I love it. We got some great examples of what pop marketing is. I think we should all be a little smarter about it. Joe gave some great examples. If you want to learn more, you can come to the At Home Summit this month, October 20th to 22nd, or give him a follow. He's at Joe Normal on Twitter. Joe, any final thoughts before we end this year?
I'm really thinking that I want everybody to join us this month, because I am really pumped to bring kind of a reorganized talk that's specifically about doing pop marketing on a small or no budget. But yeah, check out the Pop Marketing Podcast too. You can get it anywhere podcasts are at, but I've been putting a lot of time into that. We're getting some really cool guests. And if you really want to get an idea of what pop marketing is and who's behind it, and learn with me, then check out the Pop Marketing Podcast, or just, give me your email, and my newsletter has different pop marketing case studies like we were talking about.
And that's the name of it, Pop Marketing Podcast?
Yep, the Pop Marketing Podcast. Google it, and it should come up.
Which is why you invested in that fancy microphone.
That's it. It's 100%. Like, this is